They always come back. That's what everyone tells you. Just wait, be patient, give them space, and you do. You wait. You give them all the space in the world and still nothing. The silence just gets louder and you start wondering if maybe you were the problem, if maybe you pushed too hard, if maybe you weren't enough. Stop right there, because what I've been about to tell you is going to completely flip everything you thought you knew about avoidance. There is one thing, just one, that makes an avoidant not just come back, but actually chase you. And no, it is not playing games. It is not pretending you don't care. It is something most people will never do because it requires real courage. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will understand the avoidant mind in a way that most therapists won't even tell you. Drop the word finally in the comments right now if you have been waiting on an avoidant and you feel you are done letting them control how you feel. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start with what an avoidant actually is, because most people think they know. They think an avoidant is just someone who is cold, someone who pulls away, someone who doesn't text back, someone who says they need space every time things get real. And yes, those things are true on the surface. But underneath all of that, underneath all the distance and the silence and the walls, there is something much more complicated happening. There is a human being who is absolutely terrified of being loved. Think about that for a second. Not terrified of being hurt, not terrified of being rejected, terrified of being loved. Because for an avoidant, love is not safe. Love is not warm and soft and comforting the way it might feel to you. For an avoidant, love has always come with a cost. It came with losing yourself. It came with being controlled. It came with someone needing too much from you or someone leaving anyway, even after you gave everything. So the brain, the brilliant survival-obsessed brain, learned a lesson early on. The lesson was this: getting close to people hurts. And so it built a wall, a big, thick, complicated wall, and then it forgot that the wall was ever a choice. It started to feel like just the way things are. This is what you are dealing with. This is not a bad person. This is not someone who doesn't feel things. This is actually someone who feels things so intensely that their entire system had to create distance just to survive. And when you understand that, everything changes. Your strategy changes. Your energy changes. Your presence changes. And that is what starts to pull them back in. Now, here is where most people go wrong. And I want you to really hear this, because this is where the pain lives for so many people. When an avoidant pulls away, the natural human response is to move closer. You text more, you call, you check in, you explain yourself, you apologize even when you don't know what you did wrong. You try to fix it, you try to reassure them. You do everything in your power to close the gap because the gap feels unbearable. And that gap, that silence, that distance, it triggers your own attachment wounds. It triggers your fear of abandonment. It makes you feel like you are about to lose something really important. So you reach and you reach and you reach, and every single time you reach, the avoidant pulls further back. Not because they don't care, not because they are cruel, but because their nervous system just sent them a very loud alarm. The alarm that says, too close, too much, too fast, retreat. And they listen to that alarm the way you might listen to a fire drill, automatically, without thinking, without choosing, they just go. And now you are in this terrible, exhausting loop. You chase, they retreat. You back off for a minute, they get a little curious. You get hopeful and move in again. They disappear again. It is one of the most painful relationship dynamics that exists, and it is not your fault that you ended up in it, but it is your responsibility to get out of it. And there is only one way out. There is only one move that actually works. One thing that changes the entire game. You have to become genuinely okay without them. Not pretend okay, not strategically okay, not performing okay so they notice and feel bad. Genuinely, deeply, actually okay without them in your life. And I know that sounds simple. I know it might even sound a little bit cold, but hear me out, because this is where it gets really important and really nuanced. And most people completely miss this part. When I say become okay without them, I am not talking about moving on as a tactic. I am not talking about posting pictures and making your life look amazing on social media so they see and feel jealous. I am not talking about the no contact rule as a manipulation strategy to make them miss you. Those things might get a response. They might even get a temporary return, but they will not get you what you actually want. They will not get you a secure, lasting, real connection with this person because you cannot trick an avoidant into attachment. You can only create conditions where their own walls start to feel unnecessary. And the only condition that does that is your genuine emotional independence. Here is why this works on a psychological level. Avoidants are, underneath everything, incredibly hypervigilant about one thing: engulfment. That is the clinical word for it. The fear of being swallowed up by a relationship. The fear that if they let someone in, they will lose themselves. They will be consumed. They will be trapped. They will stop existing as an individual. This is not a rational fear in most relationships, but to their nervous system, it is as real as if someone were standing in front of them with a cage. So what does your anxious chasing do to that fear? It confirms it. Every text, every call, every need, every emotional reach in their direction is data that their brain uses to say, see, I told you. This person needs too much. This person will consume you. Stay back. Stay safe. You are not doing anything wrong by having needs. Having needs is healthy and human and good, but the way you are expressing those needs through chasing and pursuing and trying to close the distance is the very thing that is activating their deepest fear. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine you stop, not dramatically, not with an angry last message or a big announcement. You just stop. You start existing fully in your own life. You start doing the things that make you feel like yourself. You start investing in your friendships, your work, your passions, your own healing. You stop waiting for their texts to determine your mood for the day. You stop checking their social media. You stop analyzing every word they said to figure out what they meant. You start actually living. What does that look like to an avoidant? It looks like safety. For the first time, maybe ever, you stop being a threat to their autonomy. You stop being someone they need to manage or push away. You become someone who is whole and complete and not waiting on them. And that is magnetic in a way that nothing else is. Think about who you are most attracted to in your life. Not just romantically, just generally. Are drawn to people who are desperately waiting for your attention, who need you to validate them, who become anxious and unsettled when you are not present. Or are you drawn to people who are just fully alive in their own world, who have passions and opinions and a life that does not revolve around you, who are genuinely delighted to see you, but clearly do not need you to function? Most people are drawn to the second type, avoidance especially, because the second type does not trigger the engulfment fear. The second type does not feel like a trap. The second type feels like a person they can actually choose freely. And avoidants are obsessed with free choice. They need to feel like they are choosing connection, not being pulled into it, not being obligated into it, not being guilted into it, choosing it freely on their own terms. When they feel that, when they feel like this person is not waiting on them, not needing them desperately, not going to swallow them whole, that is when the pull starts. That is when they start reaching out. That is when the texts come. That is when they show up and they're a little warmer, a little more present, a little more willing to go deeper, because suddenly there is no alarm going off. Suddenly, connection does not feel like a threat. It feels like a choice, and they can make a choice. Please stop for a second. I asked you at the start of the video to leave a comment. If you already did, thank you. If not, take 2 seconds and do it now. It really helps this video reach more people. Please comment, don't ignore. Let's come back to our video. And here is the part that nobody talks about. The part that is actually the most important piece of all of this. When you do this work, when you genuinely invest in yourself and your life and your healing, something shifts in you too. Not just your strategy, you. Something changes in who you are and what you want and what you will accept. And some of you are going to do this work and realize something that might surprise you. You are going to realize that you do not actually want them back. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself. And from that place of real self-worth and clarity, you look at this person and you see them clearly, maybe for the first time, and you have to make a real choice about whether this is actually what you want. Because here is the truth about avoidance, and this is the part I want you to sit with. Loving an avoidant is not impossible. It is not a lost cause. There are avoidants who do the work, who go to therapy, who recognize their patterns, who learn to stay even when staying feels scary. Those avoidants can be incredible partners. They are often deeply thoughtful, incredibly loyal once they feel safe, and capable of a love that is quiet and steady and real. But an avoidant who is not doing their own work, an avoidant who is not at all interested in examining their patterns or growing or showing up differently, that person will keep you in a loop indefinitely, and you deserve better than a loop. So, how do you know which one you are dealing with? How do you know if this person is capable of meeting you, or if they are just going to keep running? You pay attention, not to what they say, to what they do, consistently, over time. An avoidant who is growing will feel the pull of your independence. And instead of just admiring it from a distance and continuing to keep their walls up, they will take small risks. They will reach out. They will show up. They will be a little vulnerable. They might not do it perfectly. They might not do it in the way you wish they would, but they will move towards you. Not in big dramatic declarations, in small, real, consistent moves. That is what growth looks like in an avoidant. Small moves done consistently. An avoidant who is not growing will also be activated by your independence, but they will handle it differently. They might reach out briefly, create just enough contact to pull you back in, and feel reassured that you are still there, and then disappear again. This is called breadcrumbing, and it is one of the cruelest things that can happen in a relationship because it gives you just enough hope to keep you staying in something that is not actually moving forward. If you see this pattern, that is data, important data about what this relationship is actually capable of becoming. Now let's talk about the actual mechanics of what becoming genuinely okay looks like. Because I think a lot of people hear this advice and they nod their head and they say, yes, okay, I need to focus on myself. Then they go home and they sit in their apartment and they refresh their phone and they feel terrible because they do not actually know what it means to focus on themselves. They have been so focused on this other person for so long that they have kind of forgotten who they are outside of this relationship. This is actually incredibly common, and it is especially common for anxious attachers, which is the most common pairing with avoidance. Anxious attachers often define a large part of their identity through their relationships, through being needed, through being loved, through making another person happy. And when that relationship becomes unstable or uncertain, they feel destabilized at a core level. Not just sad, destabilized, like the ground is moving. If this is you, the work is not just about the avoidant. The work is about you, your own attachment system, your own nervous system, your own sense of who you are when there is no relationship to pour yourself into. And I want you to know that this work, while it might be the scariest thing you ever do, is also the most valuable thing you will ever do. Because the version of you that comes out the other side of this work is not just more attractive to an avoidant. That version of you is more attractive to everyone, including yourself. So what does the work actually look like in practical terms? Let's break it down. The first piece is getting brutally honest about what your actual baseline is, not the baseline you have when things are good and you are feeling secure. What is your baseline when the anxiety kicks in, when the avoidant goes quiet, when you do not know where you stand? What happens in your body? What thoughts start running? What behaviors get triggered? You need to know your actual baseline because you cannot change what you will not acknowledge. Most people try to manage the external situation. They try to manage the avoidant. They try to manage the texts and the contact and the distance. But the external situation is not where the problem lives. The problem lives in your nervous system, in the alarm that goes off every time someone you love pulls back. In the story, you tell yourself when you feel abandoned. That is where the work starts. The second piece is building a life that genuinely excites you independent of this person. And I want to really emphasize the word genuinely here. Not a life you are building to show them. Not a life you are curating for your Instagram story. A life that when you are living it, you actually forget to check your phone. A life where you are so present and engaged and interested in what is happening that the silence from them becomes a much smaller piece of your overall emotional landscape. This looks different for everyone. For some people, it is physical activity, getting into their body, lifting weights, running, yoga, swimming. For some people, it is creative work, writing, painting, music, building things. For some people, it is reconnecting with friendships they let slide while they were consumed by the relationship. For some people, it is returning to a passion they abandoned. The specific activity matters less than the commitment to actually doing it and actually being present while you do it. The third piece is working on your attachment system directly. This is where therapy comes in. Real therapy with someone who understands attachment theory and can help you trace your patterns back to their origins. Because here's the thing about your anxious attachment or whatever style you are operating from. It did not start with this avoidant. It started long before them. It started in childhood, in your earliest relationships, in the first times you experienced love being taken away or being conditional or being uncertain. And until you address it at that root level, you will keep recreating the same dynamic in every new relationship. You will keep finding the avoidant because there is an unfinished piece of business in your own psyche that keeps pulling you toward them. Therapy helps you complete that business. Journaling helps. Somatic work helps. Any practice that helps you get underneath the anxiety to the wound that is actually driving it helps. The fourth piece is something that I think is underrated and underdiscussed and incredibly really important. It is grieving this relationship fully, not hoping and grieving at the same time, actually grieving, setting aside real time and real space to feel the loss of what this was or what you wanted it to be. Because a lot of anxious chasers never actually grieve. They just keep chasing. And the chasing is, in a way of not having to feel the grief. As long as you are pursuing, as long as you are trying to fix it and save it and get it back, you do not have to sit with the possibility that it might actually be over. But that sitting is what transforms you. That sitting is what changes your energy. That sitting is what creates the kind of emotional freedom that avoidants actually find compelling. Now let's go deeper into something that I think is one of the most misunderstood aspects of avoidant relationships, and that is the role of your energy. Not in a mystical or spiritual sense. Although if that resonates with you, go with it. In a very practical, behavioral sense. Your energy is what you communicate before you say a word. It is the desperation that comes through in a text even when the words seem casual. It is the tension that is in your voice when you are trying to seem unbothered. It is the watchfulness in your eyes when you are around them, tracking their every expression, looking for clues about where you stand. Avoidants are extraordinarily sensitive to this energy. They pick it up immediately, and it confirms all of their fears about what close relationship feels like. When your energy shifts because you have genuinely done the internal work and genuinely become okay, they feel that too. And it is the most disorienting thing in the world for an avoidant, because they have been operating under the assumption that they know what this relationship is. They know what you are. You are the one who needs them. You are the one who is waiting. And now suddenly that is not true anymore. And they do not know what to do with that. And the not knowing, the uncertainty, the sudden awareness that maybe they were wrong about you. Maybe they were wrong about what they want. Maybe they do not want to just keep running after all. That is when they start moving toward you. The discomfort of your absence becomes louder than the discomfort of closeness. And that is a major shift, because remember, avoidants have always lived in a world where closeness was the scariest thing, but now the distance is becoming uncomfortable too, and they have to make a choice. If you have done your work, if you are genuinely living your life, if you are genuinely warm and secure when they do reach out, but not desperate, not overreactive, not immediately pouring everything back into them, they will feel safe enough to take a risk. Let's talk about what to do when they do come back, because this is where so many people blow it. The avoidant reaches out. Maybe it's a text. Maybe it's a comment on something you posted. Maybe it's a bump into you somewhere, and you, who have been waiting, feel this enormous surge of hope and relief and excitement. And you want to immediately close all the distance. You want to go right back to where things were. You want to talk about everything, about the distance, about what went wrong, about what this means, about where you are going. And what happens when you do that? The avoidant feels the alarm go off again. All that work you did, all that space you created, it evaporates in one conversation where you came on too strong, and they retreat again. So when they come back, you meet them with warmth, but not urgency. You are happy to hear from them, but you are not rearranging your whole life immediately. You respond, but you do not over-respond. You leave space in the conversation. You show interest, but you also show that you have a life, and you are living it. You do not immediately try to address everything that happened. You let the reconnection breathe. You let them come further in at their own pace. This is not playing games. This is respecting their nervous system, while also respecting yours. You are not pretending not to care. You do care, but you are also rooted in yourself enough that their return, while welcome, is not the thing that determines whether you are okay. And they can feel that, and it makes them want to come closer. Over time, if this person is genuinely capable of growth, the pattern shifts. The walls come down a little. The conversations go a little deeper. The consistency improves. They start initiating more. They start being more vulnerable. They start being more present. And you, from your secure, grounded, genuinely okay place, you meet them there without losing yourself, without abandoning the work you did. You bring the secure person you have become into this relationship, and you see if there is something here that is actually worth building. And here is the most important thing I can leave you with. Whether this avoidant comes back or not, whether they do the work or not, whether this relationship becomes what you hoped it could be or not, you will be okay. And I mean that in the deepest possible way. Not the dismissive, you will get over it, find someone else way. I mean that the work you do on yourself, the healing you do, the life you build, the security you develop in your own identity and worth, that is yours forever. No one can take it. It does not disappear when a relationship ends. It goes with you into every room you walk into every conversation, into every future relationship. The version of you that comes through this process is someone who will never again wait by the phone for someone who is not sure they want to call. Not because you stopped caring about love, but because you started knowing your own worth. And from that place, you attract something completely different. You attract people who do not make you wonder, people who show up, people who choose you clearly and consistently, because that is what secure love looks like. And that is what you deserve. The one thing that makes an avoidant come back is not a trick. It is not a technique. It is not a game. It is you. The real you. The healed you. The secure, grounded, fully alive you that stops making them the center of the universe and starts making your own life the center of your universe. That version of you is something they cannot ignore. That version of you changes everything, not just for them, for you. And that is the point.